mean, the history of the music coming out of DC, it's all rich. It's all full of creative minds and creative, like, the fact that there's contributors to every single genre we can imagine that come out of DC or speak to DC or spend some time here. When you hear go-go and you know it's go-go, and you hear music playing on a car stereo or on the radio, how do you know it's go-go to start with, right? It's the percussion that really clues your ears in. So it's congas, it's cowbells, rototoms, that percussion, and especially the syncopated drumming sound, you know that it's go-go. Then there can be a variety over time. In the history of go-go, there have been shifts in the kinds of instrumentation that make it sound more or less contemporary to its times, but it's that percussion that really clues you in. And those instruments, while they come out of Latin music ensembles, take us back to Africa, certainly West Africa in particular, in terms of the importance of rhythm and that foundational syncopated rhythm.
Chuck was a Southern blues man, and his guitar vocabulary, the way he played guitar, and what he drew from as a guitarist was the blues. And if you look at some of the classic tunes in Chuck's over in his discography, you know, Stormy Monday and Moody's Mood for Love, you know, that song goes back to the early 20th century. So the through lines, you know, go-go is like a station with, you know, destinations that are before it and go through it.
It's something to go over with the music. It's very different, a very different paradigm, you know, than experiencing music that's always been there. And I think because we grew up with like 5 different kinds of music that emerged with us as we became adults, versus people now can't remember a time when hip hop was not the art form. And it wasn't always that way. It was underground, and we had to fight to get it played on the airwaves. I mean, you used to have the no rap work day on WPGC, where we don't play rap. And then some point the paradigm shift, and it's like you have to play it, otherwise you're not going to be a viable business anymore. You know, the same way hip hop, UMTV Raps saved MTV from insolvency. Because they resisted playing black artists at first until David Bowie made them play Michael Jackson's video. And then they said, okay, the black respectable artists will play. And then hip hop emerged, and they're like, we wanted this to be, you know, the musical version of hockey, where it's just the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on TV. And they're like, yeah, you're not going to, the paradigm has shifted, you know. And I'm a rock fan. I love rock, but you know, the paradigm shifted. And MTV was forced to switch over from being a rock-centric, you know, with Kurt Loder and Headbangers Ball all the time, to Yo MTV Raps being its #1 rated show. So growing up with this music where hip-hop has always been here, if you're young, hip-hop has always been in your life. We saw hip-hop come. We were there. And, you know, it's powerful. It's a powerful thing.
No music lives as an island unto itself. No artist lives as an island unto themselves. There's reference and communication across genres, across individuals, across ensembles that make for creative output. So when you think of somebody like Chuck Brown is also getting a lot of influence from his work in Latin bands and Latin jazz, the sounds of go-go permeating other genres, the sounds of hip-hop coming into other genres. So this mixing, none of these things are as clean as the names suggest. There's reference and influence all the way across the board. There are ways in which, of course, blues opens the door for jazz, opens the door for rhythm and blues, but opens the door for pop, for hip hop, for all of these different kinds of music. And so we imagine these musics in lineage with one another, and these artists in a lineage with one another.
Go-go was becoming a thing. It wasn't a thing in the 70s, really. It was still much more tied to the funk and kind of what we call rare grooves now, and jazz world, than it was kind of its own standalone genre that really had its own dedicated spaces and culture around it. But that was coming up, and it kind of grew up with me. So we were the first generation of kids to have go-go, you know, given to us by the adults who were making it. And in middle school, my music teacher, JB, you know, he was in Rare Essence. So we were getting exposed to Rare Essence because our music teacher was in the band. Trouble Funk, they were really avant-garde. The band Trouble Funk was really avant-garde because, you know, they spent years in Germany. They kind of found success being kind of the ambassadors of go-go, and they found success in Europe. They were in Europe for a long time. But I remember it occurred to me that the gateway to that opportunity for them was the fact that they used to do these go-go, punk, and hardcore mashup shows. And the early ones they would do them in the daytime for kids, for all ages. So if you were 12 or 13, you could go hear, you know, Trouble Funk. You could also hear Black Flag and Minor Threat, you know, and Bad Brains. And that was my gateway into kind of like the alternative scene in DC. And the DC alternative scene has always been kind of unheralded, but at the same time, very much influential globally.
When the 930 was established, you know, you were seeing a lot of types of music that were on the rise, but were also not welcomed throughout the city and through most of Music America. You had go-go music and you had punk rock as the core two movements that were starting here in DC that most traditional sort of venues would look down upon or consider as dangerous. When you're talking about artists from DC, I mean, Bad Brains is the core influence for pretty much all of modern rock and roll. You've had people like Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters talk about coming to see shows at the original 930 Club as a teen and just being absolutely awestruck by HR from Bad Brains and like learning that you could be a rock star and that all of these different genres of influence could come together, that the jazz and the funk and the Afrobeat and the go-go music that HR grew up with in DC could all be fused into this absolutely electric passion project.
Bad Brains is our go-to. Bad Brains is our go-to. One, they started metal and screaming, like they started it. And it's also dope that they're from right here in DC. They were in Southeast performing metal music and screaming and being loud and bold and different. I was introduced to them, of course, by my dad. He drilled me with Bad Brains. Like, you gotta know them, they're from the city. So I've watched like a few shows that they've done and they're different. Bad Brains is very different. They're talented, they're brave. Shout out to Bad Brains.
From the store. Leave me inside. Leave me inside. I love the mazes I have in my mind. If I stop dreaming, will I survive? If I stop living for me, I will die.
All of the music is connected in some way, and I think that connection is the story that begs to be told. You know, like blues, it's about really like your troubles, your weariness, and that's what spirituals are too. Your troubles, your weariness, you know, it's the same concept, it's just kind of done in different places. You know, house music was a place where people could go and be safe to express who they are. You know, so it was a little element of just, even though it's, you know, spirited, it's free, you know, there is something about it that kind of moves you spiritually, just like these blues songs, or just like these spirituals, or jazz being so expressive and kind of like coloring outside the lines with your approach to sound. You know, you make a mistake, it's no mistake, you know, in jazz. It's just kind of how life goes, you know, inside out, you know, movement is, so all of those genres, and just like hip hop and freestyle, you know, it's improvising. I admire, in my secret life, I really would like to be a freestyle rapper. Because it's so much freedom in just like your storytelling, like right there on the spot, you know, in rhythm, in rhyme. I just think that's remarkable, but it's just like jazz too, same thing. And all of these, I think the common thread is that there is a story that, or some expression that begs to be told. You know, I don't know if that is the same for quote unquote classical music, you know what I mean? But for the music that is really folk, because it's house, it's coming from the people, it's blues, it's jazz, all of those are about community and story. And so, I mean, I just think that's the common thread.
Sweet Honey in the Rock. And this is Bernice Reagan, the great Bernice Reagan, who just passed not long ago. And she had been a member of the Student Nonviolent Coalition Committee Singers in Georgia. And she came to Howard to get her doctorate degree and brought this music. And she sang this music throughout the world. Sang it to Mandela when he comes.
Sweet Honey in the Rock is one of those timeless musical groups. I can't even say what genre it is, you know, because there's the message in the music, there is the social change, and then there is the documenting of a time. And I think that's what all music, you know, can do. It kind of puts a stamp on what it reflects, you know, the times that we're living in. But Sweet Honey in the Rock is special. I think about Dr. Barnwell and how she used to have those community sings at Levine Music and just around the area and across the country, probably across the world. But the way that she used music to bring communities together and bring people together that not necessarily, you didn't have to be, didn't have to sing in order to witness and be a part of what she was creating. But I just know that their impact has lasted, you know, for such a long time. And that the things that they were singing about was something that spoke to so many people, spoke to the times, it moved people, and it was social change music. Yeah.
Duke Ellington, who was born here, down in Foggy Bottom, but one of his last houses was here on George Avenue. And Duke Ellington, of course, is when we think of jazz.
Rhythm and blues or hip hop, those are the things that blues, jazz, that Black Broadway time period really just kind of like opened the door for that, for the music that we hear now.
Roots in the ground, the fruit comes off, meaning that stable. Now, the songs and the sounds that you call rhythm and blues, let's say from back slavery or before, was a means of communicating. So when the music changed, it changed with the times.
To me, that's what, not only the sounds like jazz, you know, it doesn't have to have language and words, but it is its own language just because of how it's expressed. It moves you. It moves people to do things. It moves people to think outside of what they normally think.
Oh, I mean, I love house music. House music was born in Chicago, and there's lineage of it in New York City too. It's born out of, kind of marginalized young Black and Latino and queer kids finding spaces to, you know, express themselves and to connect as a community. And also it comes out of how Black creative young people have always taken new technology and applied it in a whole different way. So house music comes out of taking these drum machines and how can we create a new vocabulary out of it? And me as a DJ coming up in DC, even though, you know, house was born in these other cities, house had, if I think about from my experience from the 90s to the present, you know, just in club culture in general, house has always had a thriving presence in DC. And, you know, one of my mentors, Sam the Man Burns, who mentored generations of DC DJs, you know, Sam was the Chuck Brown of house music in DC. And Sam taught us how to be in community and how to dance together and how to really play sets that were emotionally weighty and had a narrative. That's probably the biggest thing that I get from house music is creating a musical narrative in my DJ sets. Like over the course of 3, 4, 5 hours, we're going to go through a whole set of plot points and an emotional arc and emotional dimensions. So house taught me that. House is also a place where created some of the most amazing dancers. And to this day, DC has phenomenal street dancers who are fluent in hip hop and house and other styles. So there's a whole lineage and community of multiple generations of street dancers in DC who have trained and found community and polished their craft in the underground house music clubs, the clubs where, you know, the party don't stop till the sun comes up.
House music makes me feel, oh my gosh, it's like love. You know, I feel accepted. I feel like I belong on the dance floor. You know, it's just like this, it's like a family reunion, but with dance. But I remember going to like the State of the Union and going to the back of the room and Sam the Man Burns was spinning. And it was just like, I just could get lost in that space and just like forget everything else around me. And I'm on the dance floor, I'm spinning around. I'm like, you're not really dancing with anybody. You just really getting in touch with like the music and yourself and just kind of like free. You know, that's how I experience house. And then to be able to like start making music and singing and writing house, that just took it to another level for me. House is not just, it's the music, it's the culture, it's the dance. It's like, it's like a lifestyle in a way. You know, kind of like hip hop. Hip hop is a lifestyle too. I look at house in the same way, you know. There's like this freedom about you. Just the 4 to the floor rhythm, the syncopation, the vocals. Sometimes it's not the vocals, it's just, you know, I will say that a lot of the lyrics for house, it talks about being free. It talks about being free. So that's what we experience when we hear it and when we're moving and we're just in it. You come to the dance floor to leave it all there. You know, it's like you going to the altar. I can feel it right now. The culture is of dance, you know, that's what house is. So, and a lot of music is not about that. It's not about the dance, but for house, that's what it is.
Every urban culture that's based around music and youth, dancing is not just a component, but essential to it. So as a student of Black people music, wherever you find it, whether in this country or outside of this country, I'm always keen to how it manifests in movement, whether it be, you know, in the Midwest where you got house dancing in the JIT, or, you know, for me being a devotee of hip hop, you know, I think about b-boying coming out of New York. Yeah, in DC, growing up, we had dances in the go-go we used to do. You know, we used to do the Smurf and the Happy Feet and, you know, all of that. And then a couple generations after my youth, you know, the kids were beating their feet. And I kind of look at that as very much an essential DC movement vocabulary. Like, because music really defines like how you dance, shows how the music lives in your body, whether it be house music or hip hop or footwork, or if you go outside, or you know how they second line in New Orleans. So when you see dance, what you're seeing is how the music feels in your body and how people relate to the music and each other kinetically, you know, without words. So I'd say that how long a kid, I can't even say kids anymore, how long they've been beating their feet? 25 years now? 20 years now? I'd say Beat Your Feet is a quintessential DC dance, you know. So that's, and it has vocabulary, and it has history, and it has, you know, levels of expertise. It has its own, you know, techniques, like all dances do. And it's also a language. So when you see folks beating their feet, you know, it's a language that you speak and you can understand and respond to.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.